to today's edition of the Mayor Minute. It's part of our Local Government Today series that we're doing here, filming in the beautiful town of St. Clair. I have two guests today. One is Laura Scaccia. She is the Chamber of Commerce and Marine City president, and also sits on the board for the Economic and Development Board in Marine City. And I also have Geoff Donaldson, who is our county senior planner. He is also the director of the county Brownfield Development Authority. So I welcome my guests. And I just kind of want to start off by saying that, you know, we had a very interesting city meeting last Thursday, and I had the pleasure of listening to the 2.5 hours again this morning, you know, just so I could, you know, make some notes and get some facts straight about some of the things that were said. Some of the information that was said at Thursday's meeting was confusing. So I feel it's my duty as, you know, Mayor of Marine City to present facts, only the facts, and so that's why we're all here today having this conversation. So one of the first subjects I want to talk about is the proposed Marina project for Marine City. One of the things that was said several times was that it was only going to be 7 boat slips. And that information is inaccurate. We actually have 13 boat slips and 50 feet of seawall that we are trying to ascertain. And we're going to do a graphic up on the screen, but just so everyone knows, because I did a little bit of research, so 13 boat slips is not, I mean, it's smaller, but everything in Marine City is kind of on the smaller level. We have what's called a boutique hotel, and when you hear the word boutique hotel, it doesn't mean that that hotel has a boutique. It means that it's just a smaller hotel. There's a certain size limit for that term. We also have a lot of smaller shops. So I think that 13 boat slips being proposed is a perfect, you know, start to our Marina project. The 13 boat slips, as I said before, I did a little bit of research. The average boat slip in any community in the summer turns over 3 times a day. That means that 3 different boaters are coming and going from each slip. Some come in the early morning, some come in the afternoon, some come in the evening, so 3 a day. So I did a little bit of math, and so if we do 3 boat slips a day, that's 39 boats a day that potentially could come into the marina. Each boat brings at least 2 people, so that's 78 people a day coming on and off boats. And the boating season is so short, everybody boats 7 days a week. So if we have that many people coming and going, that's 546 people per week potentially could come into our city, and they're going to come for breakfast, lunch, dinner, shop at the shops, you know, look at the parks, come back, you know, by car if they wanted to in the winter. So that is a huge fact that I wanted to put out there. So I'm going to talk to Laura real quick about the Marina project and what it means, because I know that the Marina project was voted #1 on Blue Meets Green. So can you talk to us a little bit about what Blue Meets Green is?
So the Economic Development Alliance of St. Clair County has put together, I guess it would be like a subcommittee and a leadership council that hears presentations on different ideas, whether it be public or private initiative. Initially what you do is you write your proposal up, you submit it. If you're accepted, then you actually do a presentation, and there's a question and answer. With the COVID and everything like that, it was done a little bit differently this year. It was done on Zoom, so they recorded our presentation. We then met on Zoom, and we were asked questions. From there, you have stakeholders, or I call them important people in the community, whether it be actually regional people. So it could be business owners, it could be people that are involved in government, it's people of the EDA, and they review all of these presentations. There were 10 of them. And from that, they select through voting the number one, their choice. So we were determined to be the number one regional strategic priority for St. Clair County, and for our region, which I think is just,
it's huge.
It's huge.
It's huge. Saying that Marine City needs a marina is huge.
Absolutely. And it really, as I was going through and preparing this presentation and stuff, I realized that, the gap that we have in our river from, St. Clair, to Algonac, there's a 16 nautical mile gap between there. So you have boaters that, first of all, won't stop. There's no fuel or there's nowhere to stop. So now we've just bridged that gap. So that's one of the priorities too. That was a very important feature. In addition, the loss of our Blue Water Ferry, has affected us not only in Marine City but regionally.
Right.
So this is a way to bring people in, another way to bring people in, because we're not going to get our ferry back.
Right.
So, but we will bring in, like you said, with your numbers, we will bring people in via boat, via our waterways. So, so we're excited. I mean, I'm thrilled. Our Community and Economic Development Board has been working on this project for over a year. We were also, looking at a marina and, a harbor. So it focused on, on the marina, and this is, hopefully coming to fruition. So yeah, we're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, that's great, because there's many projects happening along the river
Absolutely.
that are, I want everybody out there in TV land to know that, starting at the what do you call those things with the sand? Why am I not thinking of that word?
Oh, the aggregate.
The aggregate. Thank you.
Yes.
The sand piles.
Yes.
Starting there,
the aggregate
right,
pile.
and coming into the Bell River. We've got somebody that bought a house and is starting a bait and tackle shop and a fishing charter. And then moving in more, coming north, we've got a person from Algonac that bought a huge piece of property and is developing. He's got some transient docking that he's doing, some rental docking. He's doing a gas dock and also another kind of a bait and tackle shop and like a little store too, so you can actually buy, merchandise and maybe pop and chips and whatever. That's going on there. And then of course we got our new kayak launch that's going in very, very soon. If the weather continues like this, it's going to be next week or something. And that's going to be right across from the marina. So the Bell River is going to see some wonderful activity.
Absolutely.
And one of the things also that was mentioned on the at the meeting was the clearance under the dock. We are not just going to be able to have fishing boats going under the Laboon Bridge. It is tall enough. We are looking at actually, Elaine and I and Mike from the DPW, we're going to be getting clearance numbers for both sides of the dock coming in and going out, so that you can, the height of your boat, that you're going to be able to, because it changes.
Right.
I mean, you don't have tides like they do in Florida, but in Michigan, I mean, our water does change. So my friends have a 32 Sea Ray. It goes under that dock, no problem.
I think it's 14 feet right now between them. So right now it's at 14, if I recall, somebody told me.
And that's a big clearance.
That's good.
That's a big clearance. So we're not just going to see fishing boats. There's going to be all different kinds of boats being able to come and use our marina. So was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with the marina project? And
well, I think the fact that this was given regional, strategic priority just kind of shows how important it is, not only to Marine City but to the region, and that we need support. We need support from everyone. This is something that, as we move forward, we're going to be partnering with different organizations and getting funding in different areas, and so. Having a unified community and a unified, region and, county is good. It's going to help. So
yeah, I agree. And we also had Sherry Faust come on she kind of came into the city meeting on Thursday, and she was saying that they're, looking at the whole Bridge to Bay Trail, for walkers and bikers and that kind of stuff. And the purpose of kind of looping it through Marine City is that, you're not just staying, if everybody's familiar with the trail, right? It goes behind, where our new city offices and the library and stuff like that. It follows Parker. Well, that doesn't bring people through, downtown Marine City, and doesn't get, because I know when I go for a nice bike ride, you want to stop and get something to eat, shop a little bit. And so the loop is going to change a little and bring the bikers through downtown and come up past the marina. So that's going to be a huge
really
thing
wonderful.
too. If we can do, as we continue to develop that property through all of our grants that we're getting, and it would be great to have like just a small little, picnic area or possibly a restroom there or something like that.
Right.
So the possibilities are truly endless.
Right.
Yeah.
This is phase one, and I'm kind of happy that it's like what you said before about boutique. It is a boutique or small marina, and marina doesn't mean you have to have gas. I've looked up that definition a couple times, in Webster, and it is a marina. And even if it only has 13 slips, that's a lot more than what we have. So
that's exactly right.
I'm excited for Marine City. I'm excited for everybody. It gives public access. That's really important. So it also gives public access.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, we lost the ferry.
Yep.
So now we don't have anybody from Canada coming in.
Right.
And this brings a whole new set of people walking.
It brings some of our international partners over again, because, we did work really hard. We had great relationships with Sombra. We did a lot of events back and forth. We miss them, and they miss us, I'm sure. So I'm excited to get some of our Canadian neighbors back over and look forward to what this has to, all the good it's going to bring Marine City.
Yeah. And even on a safety issue, or safety level, I should say, when you have, would you say 16 miles?
Right.
16 miles of...
It's a lot, nautical miles.
Of waterway, I'm a boater, and I'm telling you, when it hits the fan on the water and you have to find a safe harbor, you need to get in.
Absolutely.
You need to get in, you need to get a safe place to dock.
Right.
And there's nothing worse than being on a boat, and I just experienced this last summer. You're on a boat and you're having fun, and all of a sudden a Mayday call comes out, and they happen. There were 5 people in the water, 3 of which were children, not far from where we were, and that Mayday call, the one thing about the boating community is everybody stops and gets involved. Nobody, like if you're, have a flat tire on the side of the road, cars just whiz past you. In the boating world, you stop, and you bring people to safe harbor. And to have Marine City become a safe harbor, that's a huge thing. That's huge. So yeah, I'm very excited, and I'm glad that we're here talking about the facts, and hopefully letting our community members know, because when you're an elected official, you hope that whether we agree with something or not, we have to present the facts. So now we present the facts. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and another subject that was talked about on Thursday's meeting was the Brownfield project for the Geck building. And for those of you out in TV land that don't know what the Geck building is, it's a very large building located between the Riverbank Theater and the Marina, right?
Yes.
And multiple storefronts and apartments above. There were people that lived in those apartments until a few years ago, and now the building is sitting vacant and is in dire need for some love.
Yeah.
We all, every city commissioner took a tour of that building weeks ago and saw firsthand how badly it needs some TLC. So, someone had purchased it. We have an investor that purchased it and is asking for a brownfield. So educate us, Geoff Donaldson, in the most basic of terms, what exactly a brownfield is and why it's so important to have that in like our community. And believe me, it's being used all through St. Clair County.
Absolutely, yeah. Many different places. I've got a list here of all the different places where the County Brownfield Authority has assisted, and the city of Port Huron actually has their own Brownfield Authority. We've assisted in the city, and they do a lot of their own work as well. But when you talk about a brownfield, a lot of people think of the typical image that comes to mind, that factory that's sitting there, or a closed gas station that's been closed for years. But a brownfield, it can be something that has known or perceived contamination, and the reason that is if a property is perceived to be contaminated, a lot of times that property is going to sit there for a long time. Nobody's going to take a chance on it, and it's a liability for the community. A lot of things, I say it's a liability for the community. When properties go unused, we all know what can happen to them. They can become magnets for things that you just don't want going on in your community. And not to mention, it's not really doing anything for the tax base,
right,
because it's not being productive. So brownfields can be defined in many different fashions, and when you think of it in that term. What can we do with the Brownfield Authority and the brownfield work in the county and with these kind of projects? We can provide liability protection for people who want to invest in property but are concerned about things that they didn't contribute to but exist on that property. And a lot of people in their right mind won't take a chance on a property if they think that it could be a significant financial liability somewhere down the line if they're held accountable for something they never did.
Right.
So how do you move those properties forward? How do you address that? With the Brownfield program, we can provide opportunities for reimbursement of environmental expenditures to address those kind of problems. So if you want to take a chance on a property, but the cost to address the cleanup on that property, whether the property is orphaned or the contamination happened years ago when nobody even really knew that was a way of contaminating the property, it was an accepted practice. So those situations, something needs to happen to clean those kind of things up, and that's where the Brownfield programs come into place. It can also provide opportunities for grants and loans, not necessarily on all projects, but certainly with some. It can provide reimbursement for demolition, asbestos lead abatement, and cleanup. And also it can provide assistance with infrastructure improvements. A lot of times, infrastructure might not quite reach a property that needs to be developed, and that can be a deal breaker. I know, for example, one project we're working on, we wanted the community wants some affordable housing. Well, when speaking with housing builders, it's pretty hard to build a house for anything less than $350,000 nowadays. A big chunk of that's the infrastructure, providing the infrastructure, getting it because the city will get it from one point, but getting it from one point here to point over here, there's a significant cost in doing that, getting the water and the sewer, the curb, the gutter, and all of that. Brownfields can assist and help bridge that gap in some situations. And in one community, we're trying to do that creatively so that we can try and make some affordable homes to bring more younger families into an area and maybe help with the school district and enrollment and that sort of thing.
So it's not just development of like downtown buildings. It also is development for housing, as you just said, correct?
It certainly can be, yes.
Yeah.
And we've assisted in many different projects, big and small. I think of the Cavis building up in Port Huron. Many people in this community remember that fondly, and it's going to have a new life here very soon. But it started out its life as a gas station, and there were some issues associated with that. So so that that's an example of a smaller project. And then we've assisted everything all the way up to SMR in Marysville, which is a big project as well. But it was important to assist with that in some regards. It's certainly been a bellwether for that community as far as jobs and investment and improvement of the tax base, et cetera.
That's huge. So one of the things that, and I don't understand this, you mentioned Brownfield, and there are some that think that it is a tax break for the rich, and that is completely inaccurate.
Absolutely. I think that is a misnomer out there. So first of all, when we're talking about brownfields, there's many different facets of assistance with brownfields. The county invested, I take that back. The county applied for a grant from the US EPA back in 2010, and we were fortunate to get $1 million. And actually, I have a diagram that would be our dashboard that's dated 2010. And in looking at that diagram, I can see that through that $1 million that was came to the county in a grant and went out through projects, there's 31 phase 1 site assessments were completed, 19 phase 2 assessments were completed, 11 different municipalities had projects that occurred in them. But here's the big number. Out of that $1 million of Brownfield assistance, where we helped at the front end of the project, the environmental assessments, $165,692,500 of private investment was leveraged.
Wow.
And those are dollars that very well might never have been brought into the community or spent in the community.
Right.
Because it incentivized people to take that risk on a property that otherwise most might have sat there and continued to
Rot,
stagnate, decrease in taxable value over time.
Yeah.
And but they've invested in it and driven up the value.
I think it's a great incentive. You know, one of another thing that, and again, I'm referring back to the meeting minutes that I was listening to again this morning. One of the other points that I want to try to make is that it does not take away from schools and millages and the seniors, and it does not.
Absolutely, that's a misnomer out there. So I've got another diagram. I don't know if we're able to bring it up, but it's the tax increment financing diagram that I have. And essentially, with this diagram that I've shared with a lot of people at meetings when that question comes up, I mentioned how we can assist at the beginning of the process with the due diligence. But then once we've identified if there's an issue with the property and there's certain issues that need to be addressed, whether it's contamination or asbestos, or quite simply, like for example, with the apartments in Marine City that we talked about the other night, just obsolescence. The boiler is gone, the electrical's bad, water's come into the building.
The building is it's horrible.
You feel like you're going to go through the stairs when you walk on them,
yes,
and whatnot. The cost to bring that back to life is prohibitive for most people. The return on investment wouldn't be there. So somebody owns that property, somebody's paying taxes on it. Let's just say that's, for discussion purposes, they're paying $100 a year in taxes on it. I know that's low, but just to keep it simple.
I wish.
Yeah, to keep it simple, because if I use bigger numbers, I have a hard time with the math. So $100 a year of taxes are being paid on that. A developer will come in that will assess the property. They'll say, I really want to invest in this, but unless we can sort of bridge the gap and address some of those issues, the return on the investment is just not there. I can't spend the money. So with a Brownfield plan that gets put into place, we can identify what are deemed to be eligible activities. And the state law identifies what are eligible activities. We can't just make those up willy-nilly. We work with a private consultant who is an expert in this area. We identify that, working with the developer, their engineers, their architects, identify all the eligible activities, and we put a cost to those. So we're not coming in with this Brownfield plan and saying, we're going to help you put up the bricks and the drywall and all of the fancy accoutrements, but we're going to take care of the other issues and help level the playing field, so then you are willing to make that huge investment to take this property to the next level. So by making that investment with the developer, that property is going to get reassessed, and the value is going to go up quite a bit. Once it's completed, it gets reassessed. There's a new amount of taxes that gets created on it. So let's say originally the taxes were $100. The municipality is going to continue to get that $100.
So we continue to get the taxes from that building.
Absolutely.
There is no reduction.
There's nothing given away.
Right, nothing is given away. Right.
If but not for this development, you wouldn't have seen any of the new taxes that are coming out of it anyways.
Right.
However, the new taxes go into a bucket, and as the property gets redeveloped, receipts are generated, costs are incurred. Those get submitted to the Brownfield Authority, and the new taxes, so now instead of the community getting $100, they're getting $1,000 because it's gone up quite a bit. $900 difference in taxes, those $900 new dollars, those go into a bucket. And when the Brownfield Authority looks at all the investment and all the receipts and says, okay, we can reimburse these. We might not be able to do it for year one because it might take a couple years to address it, but we'll take the new increment of taxes. So Community A continues to get their $100, but that new income goes into the bucket. Those go towards reimbursing those expenses to take care of those liabilities, not to build the fancy new project on Main Street or the small little bakery out in the township, but or on an old property, but to address the environmental or obsolescent conditions of the property.
Yeah.
That goes on for a period of time until those eligible activities are taken care of. There's a small portion at the end where the state there's some money goes into a state revolving loan fund, and it's not much, and it amounts to 10% of probably the tax capture to keep these projects going throughout the state and the administration and that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden the community realizes this new jump up in taxes.
Right.
And now instead of getting $100 on it every year, they're getting $1,000 on it every year. You just have to wait a little longer to get to that $1,000 mark because it helps somebody take that risk and address those conditions on a property that somebody might not have been willing to do prior to that.
Right. So if someone doesn't take the risk and come in and like Tom did, he bought the building, he's trying to get the brownfield. If that doesn't happen, the building just sits there, because I don't know of any investor that is going to come in and spend millions trying to get that building back up to code and what it should be. And one of the things that I like about what's happening with that building is, living quarters above, right? 6 apartments. That's bringing in 6 new families, new people that are going to be using all of our community services, and then 3 retail on the bottom.
Yeah.
And again, retail, more taxes, better for the community. You got our boaters walking around wanting new shops to go into.
Well, and similar projects we worked on, the other thing that we hear after the project is completed is the business owners up and down that street or in that community now, instead of having a liability next door, have something that's really, it's like at your house. If your neighbor starts taking care of their yard, you step it up a bit.
Yeah. Because honestly, I said it already, I was in that building. That building is in really rough shape.
Oh.
I'm amazed that we didn't see critters.
I think I did.
alive critters.
I know where to look.
I think we saw some dead ones. I really like the graph that you showed, because I think that this kind of puts it into perspective. Again, we don't lose any money. We're not losing any taxes. None of our city services are losing any money.
There's no giveaway.
Right.
If but not for this development, there wouldn't have been any of these taxes to even talk about. However, so they're going to go towards reimbursing the cleanup that wouldn't have occurred without it.
Right.
So, you're talking about your project and the importance of reaching out to stakeholders. We were at that meeting. We heard about that, and part of every brownfield plan, there is some administrative costs, very small, but some, and they go into a pool of funds that the Brownfield Authority administers and tries to manage, very responsibly. But we heard about that, and we right away, being familiar with DNR land acquisition projects, I reached out to Mr. Bunch from 6 Realtors and said, I believe you might need to complete a phase 1 environmental assessment. He said, yeah. I said, we can help with that. And he said, you
Very
can.
good.
Excellent. So that's happening. I don't know if you even knew that.
Yes, I did know they were
Yes.
doing a phase 1
Yes.
appraisal, so
Yes.
that's wonderful. That's good. See, but that is government, community, people working together to achieve
Right.
greatness,
Right.
something great. Because it doesn't. It takes a village. We've said that many times, Cheryl, right? It takes a village, and it's hard work.
Because what worries me is that, when we continue to say no to projects, development, whatever comes our way, you get a reputation of being a no town, a no city. Well, let's just pass Marine City right by. We'll go to St. Clair. We'll go back down to Algonac. We'll go to Port Huron, where they have their own brownfield completely in Port Huron.
Or
you know,
Macomb County.
Or
you know,
Macomb
we don't want
County.
to lose them there.
right, right. And so, you know, when that happens and you have that no reputation, do we have new families coming into town? Do we develop? Do we develop new subdivisions? No, nothing. Nothing happens. You know, and then people start leaving. And then guess what happens to your taxes and your water bills?
Right.
Right? They increase. The more people you bring in, your tax bills go down, your water bills go down, because now you've got more people supporting the infrastructure of a city. You know, and I don't think some people realize that. The more you say no, people are not going to want to stay here.
Well, on the flip side of that, this project that you talked about, we spoke of at length at council the other night. The investors in that, it's an LLC that's been formed, and it's a 50-50 partnership, and half of it is a developer who's already had experience in town. And because of the positive experience they had and the assistance they had, they reached out to an out-of-town friend and said,
Right.
are you interested? They joined a 50-50 partnership. Had they not been welcomed like that by the community and perhaps given the assistance to make this project work, because without it, I've seen the pro forma, it wouldn't have worked. They would have been in the red for the first 15 years, and who goes into business not to make money for 15?
Nobody does that.
They brought in a friend, and that person's going to be bringing their checkbook into Marine City in St. Clair County and investing in it. And like I said, when they invest in that property, the neighbors take notice, and who knows, perhaps the rest of, not that Marine City doesn't need a whole lot more work because it's looking fantastic, but I think everybody welcomes improvements
Absolutely.
all the time.
Absolutely. We have a meeting tonight on for our Economic and Development Board, and behind the scenes, and we can talk about this because it's a public forum for our government. We do have a lot of people that are making the phone calls that I don't understand. I don't think the general public knows that, right? We are trying to, when someone comes into town and we hear it from another business owner, or they contact the chamber, or they contact the city offices, we really truly try to take that person and their business and put them in a building or find them a spot or something. We do that all the time. And I think that our citizens need to know that, that we are out there working almost on a daily basis, trying to. We've got somebody that wants to do an art center in Marine City, and every time I take my walk or ride my bike around, and I'm like, oh, what about that building? What about that building?
Right.
And I'm calling them. And they're coming like right away. Oh, I didn't even notice that this was here. And it might not be on Water Street, but even the next street, or, on Chartier, on Parker's developing like crazy, and we do have a lot of people that are coming in that want to invest in Marine City. We cannot keep saying no, and, we're told by the developer of this Geck building, this is his last project. He said that in front of every city council member. This is my last project, and just because of the fact that he's a little older and he wants to retire.
Probably wants to start enjoying some of it.
Enjoy some of it, right?
Not being on the phone with all of us all the time, getting the work done.
Right. So we can't expect these investors to just keep coming back and coming back and coming back with new things when we keep saying no. So. That's the reason why it was so important for me to do this Government Today segment, is just to clarify some things and to put facts out there and to let people know that there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and we just want to move Marine City in a positive direction.
Right.
And it does take a village.
It does take a village. We know that.
It takes a village. Thank you, Geoff Donaldson, for coming in. Thank you, Laura Scaccia, for coming in.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
My name is Cheryl Vercammen. I'm the Mayor of Marine City, and thank you for joining us for another segment of the Mayor Minute.